Welcome to the Chain Effect Podcast. We're a physical therapist and a dietitian married with 2 kids, juggle the struggle of running a business, raising a family, and prioritizing our own health, all while trying to have as much fun as possible.
We're your hosts, Taylor Pope, Doctor of Physical Therapy, and
Caroline Pope, registered dietitian.
Together we own and operate a health facility bringing together physical therapists, dietitians, personal trainers, and active recovery services to create what we call the Chain Effect. And today, after 10 years, we're gonna take a trip down memory lane and talk about some lessons and things we've learned over the last 10 years of being in business, a little bit about the origin story.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff. So taking a break from our normal health-related topics, but it might give you a little insight into business if you run a business or you're thinking about opening up your own business, what we would tell our former selves, what we've learned, what things we've done well, we think. So,
and if you own a business, you can probably relate to a lot of these things.
But we've got some funny stories in here because our relationship has a funny origin.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, speaking to that, it was when I was working at my first clinic. I think I'd been a PT for maybe 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
Before one day, this woman was on my schedule and started talking my head off about this and that and finding out all about me, and then recommended that, basically just said, after a couple of visits where she was like, I think you and my daughter might have a lot in common. And this was your mom.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't me, folks.
Yeah.
It was my mom. And I was dating someone at the time. And so she was also talking to me about you when I was still dating someone.
Right.
I was like, Mom, I have a boyfriend. Well, I just thought maybe you'd want to like shadow him in case I was still in college. I was still in undergrad. I had thought for a split second about physical therapy. By this time, I knew I was going into nutrition, but she framed it, I think, to you like, I might consider going to PT school, so I might want to shadow you.
Yeah. And she's like, she's saying, and she teaches fitness classes at UNC. She's like, she likes exercise. And then, one day she came in and she said, I was just on my way to CVS to get this photo blown up of our family. And, do you want to see a picture of her? And so as the story goes, eventually we found each other on Facebook and then set up our first date, which was a blind date. And we went to the Snoop Dogg concert.
Now let's talk about risks.
Yeah.
Starting back then. Now, luckily, my mom knew you, so you weren't like a crazy person, and she knew where you lived. But this day and age, I mean, thinking back, I was so young and innocent and naive, and I went over to your apartment on a blind date. That was the first time we had met at your apartment, and it was
where
really
I lived
nice.
alone.
Where you lived alone, and like. Just thinking back, wow, that was a risk itself.
You said it was really nice, but it wasn't really nice.
No, did I say it was nice?
I thought you said it was really nice, but
maybe because I was in college.
Yeah, but like there were a couple murders while I lived in those apartments. Remember?
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
well, not necessarily murders.
Well, one person died, and then there was a murder,
an overdose or something.
Yeah, well, there was that. That was my neighbor, and then and then there was a murder. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that was a big risk in itself, and also setting up to like. You make me dinner, which is really nice. You offered to make dinner. Why don't you come over? I'll cook a nice dinner for us. And then we can go to the free Snoop Dogg concert, which was sponsored by UNC at the time. Mm-hmm. And so my friend had waited in line and gotten an extra ticket, and she didn't really know who I was going to give it to. She's like, why do you need an extra ticket? But it was free and it was fun. But setting us up for like a long date like that when we didn't know if we would jive at all is
it could have been just risk. Like dinner and then I'm just
most people just meet for coffee or something
exactly.
So you can leave.
I went all out too. I went scallops, steak, ahi tuna, these
asparagus,
fingerling
baby
potatoes, a little salad. There's a picture of it somewhere. We can, if anyone's
curious. So that was the first risk.
Yeah.
And so we are, I'm kind of risk averse, but I have taken a lot of risks in my life, and they've all been great. They've turned out, including Chain Effect.
So we hit it off, and along our dating lines. So this was, like I said, I'd been a physical therapist for maybe 6 months when we started dating, and then I worked at my first job for 5 years. So in our minds, this probably feels like really condensed, but it actually played out over a couple years where, you were in school, you were about to, you were finishing school, but you knew you wanted to go get your master's of nutrition. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about how it would be so cool to have a practice that was integrating physical therapy with nutrition counseling and fitness, because I had lots of clients who I would have conversations about nutrition and I always had to send them off to someone else. Or I would get them to where they were ready to start working out again and I would send them off to someone else. So we, sort of dreamed about having this all under one roof facility.
Yeah. And we hadn't seen it before.
Yeah.
Like that was you didn't see those comprehensive wellness centers.
Mm-hmm. And so then I guess I started listening to some podcasts, which was talking about, cash pay practices and how breaking free from the insurance model was really the future of physical therapy.
Yeah.
And then you were teaching fitness classes at this business called Empower Personalized Fitness, which was in the location of where we are now.
Yeah. And that's what brought us. It was like a full circle moment because I taught fitness classes with someone at UNC and then she was teaching fitness classes and doing personal training for Empower. She hooked me up. She said, "Hey, we're looking for fitness instructors. I recommended you." I came over and then taught for a while, like maybe 6 months or a year. During that time, you had met the owners, and we also were we were talking about opening our own business. Even in our wedding, our preacher who married us was like talking about how we envisioned this business together, which was cool. And that was about a year and a half before all this happened. But you were wanting to go out on your own, just part-time and rent out a little room somewhere for cash just on your own and still work maybe part-time at your job?
I think I was going to still work part-time.
Because I was in school.
Because you were in school and we didn't think it was viable to just, cut everything off. So I was going to rent by the hour. We had already decided on a rate. I think it was like $22 an hour that I was going to rent this room. And it was like a closet. Like we have our new calm in there now, but it was just going to be a little treatment room off the side. And I would just be in their gym and we're talking about that. It's getting closer to the day, that we're going to start doing it. And all of a sudden I get a phone call, or I guess I got an email from the owner of Empower at the time. And she said, "Hey, can we jump on a call real quick?" And I get on the call and I'll never forget, like this whole image is stuck in my brain. And she says, our manager who basically runs all the day to day at their flagship location had come down with an illness. And so they were, deciding to kind of pull back from that location and offered to basically have us buy the entire business. And so that was, this big moment for us where we decided, are we going to stay small or are we going to just take over this whole location?
And it was already outfitted, with the gym setting that you had always wanted as a physical therapist to take patients into that and work on them. And so it was pretty perfect. But
it was a big risk.
But I was in school.
Yeah, you were in school and, I wasn't, I was anti-loaded at that point. Like I had negative money. I was in a ton of credit card debt. I remember, this was at the time we had been married for a couple of years, but I put a big chunk of your engagement ring on my credit card. We just did not have any money. I was relying on.
And we had bought a house.
Yeah. And we had just bought a house.
We had just bought a house.
So, but we thought about it. And I remember trying to think about what's the right price? When you're buying a business, how do you even evaluate price?
Yeah.
And I was trying to read as much as I could on deciding on a price and, relying a lot on the owners of that business to kind of guide us and come up with something fair. And I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine, Tim Brooks, and he had been, kind of a big business guy and a big role model for me. And I remember him saying, even if you overpay right now for a business, it might still be the right decision because, you're getting in and you're getting started versus waiting and that time lost of that opportunity and looking for, a better opportunity that is, a better price. And that I didn't really understand it then, but that, has really stuck with me over the years is that sometimes you just got to pull the trigger. And even if you're going to maybe pay a little bit more than you think you should, just getting started is such a huge step because everything can fall into place after that. Like you can make up for, and obviously there's a limit to this. If you like just buy a really bad deal, something that just can't make money, then you're not going to be successful. But, within like a reasonable, spectrum of range there, I think that you can overpay a little bit and still like make it work in the long run. So,
yeah. And we were so fortunate to have it already set up.
Yeah.
With all the equipment, because I can imagine starting from scratch with a blank space.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were able to, still have some of the personal trainers work for us. And then I still taught fitness classes for a little while after just to make some
money.
But
we got like a $20,000 bank loan, gave them 15, and then like we're paying them every month. And
for a couple
we
years.
had $5,000. We had no savings, but we had $5,000 of basically runway to like start the first month. I think we got maybe a couple months before we had to start paying the loan back. And maybe like 2 months where we didn't have to pay rent. And that allowed us to like get a tiny amount. But do you remember?
You weren't making a paycheck anymore by that point.
Well, for one, I was sitting at the front desk. I was doing everything. It was a 1-person operation where I would answer the phone, schedule, take payment, do the treatment, and then like try to figure out, like sit there the rest of the day and try to figure out how to get more clients because I had no idea what I was doing at all.
And I had just received my RD. So I had just taken the exam. I think when we opened 2 months prior, I had just taken my exam. So I was in the process of looking for jobs, but we knew that both of us should not be there. So I was looking for full-time jobs. And also I needed that experience. I would never have
It was good.
Become a good dietitian with just like on my own from the beginning.
And I remember when you got the job at Rex, and we were like, "Oh, you're going to be making 48 grand," and like how much adding $48,000 to our we were so excited about how that was going to be like life-changing money for us.
Yeah. I have vivid memories of us setting up, like we would be there because I was there at the beginning, the first, couple months, and we sat there, we set up our coffee bar, like we were just going to be like hanging out, meeting together, drinking our coffee. But we didn't know what to do.
Yeah, you had no idea.
You'd answer the phone. We'd make sure the towels were done in the gym. We'd just do the fitness classes. You were teaching group, like kettlebell classes and things like that.
I mean, we did so many different things, and this is the classic example of the practitioner who thinks that you can just hang your own shingle and all of a sudden like people are just going to start coming. And what you don't realize is that when you open your own business, yes, you might be operator as well, where you're supplying the service of whatever that is, but really like your business, what your job becomes is sales and marketing. And system development. And
we had no business or marketing experience.
None.
So if I could go back, I think one thing that I'd like, that we should have maybe done or thought about, which I don't even think we thought about, instead of reading all about business, taking some sort of online course or something in marketing.
Yeah. Or accounting.
Or accounting.
Or any sort of, like how to read a P&L, like anything.
Yeah. Anything. We didn't know anything. And to be frank, like back then there wasn't all the resources online either. Like these courses that you can take online, the virtual videos, the this and that. So it would have been like just sitting there reading books or taking an actual course somewhere. But
it was management by bank account. If there's money in the bank account, then things are going okay. If there's no money in the bank account, panic. But
since then we have kept costs low as much as possible. And I think that's definitely helped, in our personal life and also in the business.
Well, and that goes to the idea of what I recommend for a lot of people, if you're going to start this journey, is really try to bootstrap it as much as possible. And, that just means, trying to not take on a lot of extra debt, because not having a ton of debt. I mean, we did have some debt because we had the seller finance loan and we had the bank loan, but those combined with like when we bought our house, we bought a house that we could afford and we don't have extra car payments. And so like we kept our outside costs pretty low, and thank goodness we didn't have kids at the time either. But we kept the cost pretty low, and that allowed us to have the flexibility to not take a paycheck for a month and maybe just take out enough money to pay the mortgage and, like really keep things lean for a couple years. And I think that that's really important because one, you're diving in and you are just going to make it work. But there's also not this overarching pressure that you have to like pay back investors and people sort of giving you this outside pressure. You can really sort of give yourself the space to build things the way that you think they should. Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, this kind of goes to the idea of like, we've grown our business thinking about our values and providing the kind of service that we want, as opposed to cutting corners, especially short term, just to make money.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that maybe that's made growing the business a little bit slower, but I think that from like a reputation standpoint and like a quality of product standpoint and really believing in your product, we've been able to really maintain that high level of quality that we started out thinking that we wanted to do.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something we've done well, although it's not as quick of growth, but in a good way. I think it's more sustainable, just like we preach about health and wellness, like the little things instead of going crazy. And that's so true because I feel like we've hired in that way too, for the most part. Like we could have gone the easier route in a lot of situations to grow faster, but that would have, or save money, but that could have really lessened the customer service approach, the individualized approach.
And there's been a lot of too of like giving up responsibility, because on one hand, I think you want to understand the nuts and bolts of how your business works, but you also have to let go, as you grow, you have to be able to let go of some of those processes and let go of a lot of that control and build autonomy in your team. And I remember, when I first, like our very first hire was literally someone who's like, hey, I want to go to PT school. Can I shadow you? And then she came in and all of a sudden, she had some, like on the job, real world experience at a big company. And I was like, well, would you mind, like, I'll actually pay you something and, you can get these hours and I'll pay you. And I couldn't really pay her that much at the time. But as soon as we brought her in, all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, I'm paying for this service, but now we're getting much busier.
Because she could sit at the front.
Yeah, sit at the front and answer the phone. We weren't missing phone calls. We were, able to follow up on leads a lot quicker. And so all of a sudden the business started to get a little bit of momentum. And it really keyed into the fact that, when you're growing something, you have to be thinking about the systems. You have to be thinking about, being able to know how to do everything in the job, but also setting up a system so that when someone leaves, they don't leave with all of your internal knowledge.
Like I remember she set up a handbook, and that was the start of some systemization. That is a big lesson we've learned over the years is we have to understand how everything works and have our hands in everything, not forever, but them developing systems, because we've been caught in the trap where someone is doing one specific task. We don't really know what, but they're doing like something specifically. Then they leave, and then what?
Right.
And then we're like, well, I don't know how to train this new person on it.
Yeah.
So systemizing was crucial. So we have learned that over the years.
And I even think like, as far as certain roles, we've tried to bring internal and, marketing, for instance.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, we need to hire someone to like do our internal marketing. And so we hire someone and they get to know our business, and our marketing is really on brand with that hire, because we're their only one they're working with. And so they really understand our voice and everything, but then they move on and it's like, oh, okay, crap. Now we're like starting all over again. And
they have a slightly different style. Different talents.
And it's like all of a sudden our brand image changes considerably. And so I think that's when we decided that sometimes hiring out to an agency, even though there can be, there's obviously like a learning period when you're orienting to a new company, but you're going to have a lot more of the stability because obviously, unless their business tanks, you're going to be able to stay with whatever agency as long as you want to, as long as they're serving you. And so you have a lot more control over, keeping that relationship going and keeping your agenda on task.
Yeah.
Versus like being at the whim of someone else, and they're all of a sudden they go on vacation and it's like, oh crap, like now we're not doing any marketing.
Yeah,
marketing.
what do we need to cover?
Yeah.
And it also, I feel like the first 5 years, it took us like 5 years to figure out what exactly our core services should be. At some point we're thinking about, a sports psychologist or a psychologist for mental health. Do we want to have that? That's wellness. That's kind of, who we are.
What about like IVs? Remember we were like kicking
IVs
that around a little
or labs, which would still be cool, but it's just not in our specific realm. And so while we have these several services, it's still a lot to market, and that's very challenging, but we believe that's the whole point of our business.
Right.
Is we believe you should be able to go under one roof and the providers are talking to each other and you are getting a full plan of care for your fitness, your nutrition, your body recomposition, your training goals, your rehab, whatever it is. But we did think a lot about like all these different, what could we add? Like, should we also do this?
Chasing the shiny object, I think is kind of, what you're saying. And, you think it's easy to have so many ideas. And I remember this quote from this book. It's like, ideas are cheap. Execution is where the money is. And so like it's easy to have so many different things that you think are going to be the next thing or the thing that finally propels you over the top. And really what you need is focus.
Right.
And I think which is hard for me.
And that was you with a lot of those ideas.
That's
I'm like,
right.
that is not profitable.
That's right.
That is not going to help.
Right. But I also think that, with that focus, I think going back to our original idea, I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to market nutrition, but also market physical therapy. And then how, we're cash pay for physical therapy, but we do take insurance for nutrition.
Yeah.
So, crafting a message that really reaches our ideal client, I think that's been a struggle. And, we've had to learn a lot about kind of tweaking that marketing. It would be much easier if we were just a physical therapy clinic or just a nutrition clinic.
Well, thank goodness we started taking insurance for nutrition. That was a big win. That was a big hurdle because that took a while to get set up.
Yeah.
But we were cash pay from the beginning too for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. That's been a big hurdle and it still is. But now we're finally at the point where we're like, this is our ideal avatar. This is our ideal client for everything. And of course there's a variety of clients, but we have a better sense of who is coming and who we can market to the best, who we can help the best.
Right. And, that kind of brings us back to the decision for you to join the practice. We had Bennett, who so you did 3 months of maternity leave and then you had gone back to work. And I just remember like, those were some hard months when you like went back to work. I think you went back to work for 3 months.
Did I go
like
back full time first, then part time?
Yeah. So you went back full time, I think for 3 months. And it was like, you would go to work, then you would go and visit Bennett
at lunch,
do a feeding and then come back to work. And I just remember like you'd get home and there would often be tears because it was just like, you miss him.
Yeah.
Right. And I totally get it. Like I go over there and the daycare was super awesome. I mean, they loved them.
And
they
right
loved
by my
them,
office.
and they were holding them all the time, but it's like, I want to hold them, and so I think we decided that it just wasn't worth it for you to, be working full time. And then we thought about part-time.
Yeah.
And you work.
I did start part-time. Now I remember also, shout out to my mom because moms always know. She said, even when I had him and then during maternity leave, she said, give it 3 months. She was like, because she knew I couldn't do it. Probably work full time because that's how she was. She was like, give it 3 months and then see what your options are. Yeah. Because she knew it.
And so
I was miserable at work.
We took you down to part-time. And then so we between daycare, insurance, and I think you were still saving a little bit for your
all our, once you have a baby in the hospital, it's like, ooh, actually a third person or you have an extra person that's added onto your insurance plan on top of all these fees and stuff. And that's something you don't always think about with your first child. And so our health insurance was taken out of my paycheck plus daycare. And it was like,
you got a paycheck. Her paycheck was $27.
No, is it that low?
Yeah, it was $27. Wow. And you were like, what? Bunk this. Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, well, if we let's think about like what it would take. Like, how many patients would you have to see in a day?
Yeah. And I remember writing that down. I was like, doing the math. This is our average income per client. I could see even part-time if I was able to see 8 to 12 clients a week starting off. That would pay for at least our health insurance, like and his daycare. Like, it was crazy.
And this was before telehealth. So this was all in office appointments, which for nutrition counseling, that was hard to do, to get people to really take that time out of the day to come and, do those hour appointments. We were trying to stack them as much as possible, and we were getting more and more successful. But I'll tell you what, bringing Caroline into the office was like night and day. All of a sudden having, well,
what is going on?
What is going on here? No, but
let's
for real,
get some organization here.
I think that was the same time that we had just finished up the Myers-Briggs, doing the Myers-Briggs counseling.
Yeah, right before Bennett was born.
Right before Bennett was born. And we had realized that, Caroline is, in our family, Caroline is the COO and I am the CEO. So like, I have the ideas and stuff like that and the big vision, but Caroline gets stuff done. And so bringing in that chief operations officer, Caroline, to really start like tightening the screws on like, why do we do things this way?
My Myers-Briggs was the administrator, right? Or the manager or something like that.
So as soon as you came in, you started administrating like crazy. And all of a sudden, everyone's productivity just sort of across the board started increasing. And then we were like firing on all cylinders. I remember that was like a big growth time for us. And
I don't, because I was like mother first, you know, which was interesting. I don't really remember that transition. You always talk about that, but I was huge. Like obsessed with Bennett and making sure I'm with him as much as possible.
Huge. Well, also just bringing in someone who, I mean, you can try to have this, I think, with a partner, like a friend or a business partner, but having someone in your family who is as invested in making it work, like you and I put all our eggs into the same basket, right? So if that, we have to
make it work.
And now we have a kid, so everything has to work. And so I think having that little bit of extra pressure there.
And then at that point I was like, and I have to work part-time.
Right.
I cannot go back full-time.
And so all of that was 2019. And then boom, COVID. And all gyms shut down. So that was like a huge pivot for us was, okay, what the heck, just like everyone else, like what the heck are we going to do? We are an in-person services business and we can't see people in person. And so luckily I was considered an essential worker. So
but we had the gym and the personal training, which was not. So that was difficult. That was closed for a while.
Closed that down. So all we had was my, services bring it in until boom, we realize all of a sudden they're allowing telehealth visits for nutrition counseling, which turned out to be like that little pivot was huge for us because all of a sudden we weren't limited by time and space. We could provide a services that was like much more convenient.
Yeah.
And the world has accepted that as the norm now. We're always going to have these telehealth services, hopefully insurance continues to value that because I think access for everyone has gone through the roof. Yeah. We're able to reach underserved communities that don't have the local providers.
Yeah, we were starting to get people from more rural
everywhere.
Counties and stuff around us that would refer, their doctors would refer to us. And it really, that is one bright spot of the whole, what happened. Like although we were the gym and personal training that had to get shut down, the gym, and then we had to do all those things like temperatures and masks and things like that. We were very strict when people were coming back. But
I think having that flexibility as a small business, just to be able to pivot, like, if it's not working, like we got to figure it out. That was huge during that time.
I think also me having a job before and gaining confidence in that, like at the start, the first 3 years, and coming from that is where we really started thinking about how valuable nutrition is and how dietitians should not just be seen as like a 3 appointment thing and then you're done with your goal, with your needs. And so I think that's where it kind of pivoted when I came on, part-time, and then COVID with the virtual. That's where we really were like, it's convenient for people. They're at home anyways, to really see results and to really get the value out of seeing a dietitian. We need to have more frequent appointments and more. And that's where our clients started getting really engaged and successful with their goals and their habit changes, because it's not just like a 1 appointment thing with a dietitian. So that was really cool. And how that, so I am thankful obviously about the virtual, and I know most dietitians are. But yeah. And then also, like, people always ask, how the heck do we work together? Well, that brought me home. I was virtual. You were in the clinic, masked up, and people started coming back for physical therapy and everything slowly. But you did some virtual appointments too, which was, hard, not as good. But I
mean, it was good. We made it work, but it's just not the same as, getting together with people.
Same with virtual training.
It's a lot more fun. Yeah.
But that brought me, to a place of virtual. So it's kind of nice. We don't work side by side all day long, I would say.
Yeah.
But we do talk about it at home a lot. And on the weekends, obviously, we're always thinking.
I think that definitely it certainly has its pros and cons, because I think we're both invested and we do have this ongoing puzzle that we are figuring out together. And I think that part of the way that we make it work is we realize when we're stepping on each other's toes as far as the things that we're good at versus the things that we maybe need to give the other person a little bit more agency over. I think,
what do you mean?
Well, I think me in particular, like when it comes to like,
whatever do you mean?
An execution type problem, like I'm like, okay, this is something that Caroline should really like take on and figure out and, keep the wheels going. But, when maybe it comes to like something with content creation or writing, you tend to give that a little bit more over to me to like execute and give me space to do that.
When I've learned, I think there's been a lot of ideas throughout the years. That's just you. You're the dreamer. A lot of ideas. I'm like, no to a lot of them. And, there were a lot that maybe didn't turn out, but a lot have from your research, because you do a lot of research and you do a lot of reading, and you've learned a lot. So now I would say I'm better at accepting some of your ideas and just letting you roll with it for a little bit, and then maybe figuring out it's not going to work, or
letting me figure out it's not going to work.
Letting you figure it out.
Quick shutdown, like nope. Like, because Caroline can make a decision like that, and that really goes to like the last thing that we wanted to talk about, which was hiring. Because as we've developed the business, we've become much more of our day to day is, finding those highest leveraged tasks that we need to do and trying to focus on those as best we can instead of just putting out fires all day. And as you start growing, I mean, you got to always be hiring.
Yeah.
And so what we found is that, if you're always just waiting till you need someone to hire, you're not really setting yourself up to get the best person. And so we've gotten a lot better as, trying to, one, have a process for hiring.
Yeah.
And trusting our process over, just kind of getting into that scarcity mindset where we have someone in front of us and they're pretty good, but not really checking all the boxes, or like you see
not asking the right questions,
character flaw in, early on. And we're like, ugh, like, no, let's just kind of go with it anyway. But then that turns out to be the thing that, the whole house of cards kind of falls down over.
Yeah. A big thing we've learned is that you can hire someone if they have a great character and
value system,
and a great value system that aligns with your business. Not saying other people don't, but if the values align with what you, want to show as your business, and they're a reflection of your business, then they are trainable.
Right.
Versus, let me hire the best PT I can find, or let me hire the best dietitian we can find, or let me hire a front desk coordinator that already has 10 years of experience at a front desk. We learned you can train the right people, get the right people on the bus, and that's going to help your business grow. And you've said that for a while.
Yeah. Jim Collins, shout out to Good to Great.
Just get the right people on the bus, and then your business, they can grow with you. And that's always our goal. It doesn't always work out, and people change jobs and they move and they go to school. But we have learned that versus like, oh yeah, this person seems really awesome. But from the start, we see some red flags. And this is where our personality differences, like, you're more positive about that stuff.
I'm always like trying to see the,
yeah,
not that you don't see the best in people, but like, I think I overlook a lot of things where I'm like, oh,
and I have to point them out, or you're like, yeah, but I think it'll be fine. And then the second thing happens and I'm like, okay, this is a red flag. So we have learned to be more lenient. I mean, Taylor, you also like to be friends with everyone. Yeah. Which there is a line that we've learned you have to, like, I want
to be liked, y'all.
Well, of course. And we want to be friends with our employees, but you really, to a certain level, like you can be friends, but there is a line there at some point, because we've had people abuse that a lot, or you've tried to overlook stuff because you think it's a really cool person and you're trying to be like a cool boss. Yeah. However, because of that, we haven't like implemented policies or been hard on the rules. Yeah. Rule and then that's gotten us in trouble and backfired. So,
and I think too, like,
you do have to address like your handbook, your policies, your rules, and stick to that as an employer.
And that kind of goes hand in hand too with not taking things personally as much. Like, I think, in trying to create, because everyone's talking about trying to create a great workplace culture. But at the same time, you can't get so invested in those personal relationships that like you get bummed out when someone leaves and feel like, what did I do? Like, the reality is, Caroline, you are going to be as invested in Chain Effect as I am, and no one else is going to be as invested as the two of us are. And so we just realizing that, we are an episode in people's season of life for a lot of different people, and we can make that memorable, and we can make that fun, and we can make that just a great opportunity and learning experience for them. But it's not going to be forever for most people.
Yeah, we like to set up a really fun workplace environment, and we would try to get the team together, especially like during COVID, maybe even outside or post-COVID, like some socials and here and there. And it's hard not to get, upset if not everyone comes or doesn't want to after work. But like also they may not want to do something for work after work.
And they have their own stuff going on. It's like,
so we can't get, we've learned to not take things as personal, but we're like, well, we're cool. We're trying to host this happy hour, or we're trying to host this, bowling event or whatever it is. And trying to wrangle people to those. So we've kind of learned how to shift that and still make it a really fun work environment without pressuring people to like, hang out outside of work.
So this always kind of brings me back to this question that, if you knew everything that was going to go into running this business when you started, because I always think, I don't know that I would have done it if I had known every hurdle,
would probably,
right? Like it's so hard, and it never ends, right? It's like, I always say it's a marathon. Like we just gotta approach this like a marathon. Like don't get too caught up in the day-to-day little ebbs and flows. We really just have to take this like long mindset. I mean, I do love running a business and that puzzle of it. So I think even knowing everything that I do now, I would still have do it, but I was so ill-equipped to start this when we started it, and nothing but luckily I had always been broke. I had always been poor. So like being poor, and having nothing, I already had nothing. So I had nothing to lose.
What's there to lose?
So
it's not like our professions make very much, especially mine starting off. Yeah. But that's why
we try to fix that at our place.
Yeah. I always tell health professionals, or kids who might want to shadow or going into school now, I'm like, if you can, and they don't know what they want to do, but they want to shadow to kind of get experience. I'm like, if you can take a course on business or marketing, or an elective, something. That's what I would advise anyone that wants to start a business.
And even just so you can understand it, because I think another big advantage that we had was we were one of the first in Raleigh to kind of go out of network and provide these services. So when we were doing Google ads and when we were, first kind of launching our business as an alternative, we didn't even know how to message it as an alternative to, your standard treatment, your standard care. But just being that alternative, kind of set us apart. And, we've gone back and forth. Should we go to the insurance model? Should we stay cash-based? It always came back to, no, we started this for this reason.
Yeah. What are our core values?
Yeah. What are our core values? Start with the why and then keep going back to it. So anyway, it's been an awesome journey.
It's been worth it. And you're really good at, keeping, even though we're both really stressed and we can both tell on the weekends, we do a lot of work, but you're like, people aren't working on the weekends. This can wait till Monday. And so that's good. We do have a lot of breaks where we can kind of refresh. And even though we're working at night, we're working early in the morning, we're working on the weekends, we're always thinking about it. Yeah. But it's not always in a stressful way. It's fun too. Yeah. So.
And I'm thankful to get to do it with you.
Yeah. Boo. I wouldn't take it back.
Yeah.
It's been great and offered a lot of flexibility.
I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about the history of Chain Effect and, some of the lessons that we would tell ourselves and some of the things that we've learned over the years. And if you have any questions or feel like, there's someone who is about to start a business and may benefit from this podcast, text it to them. That is a way to help us out and help spread the message. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. I'm not